Hi folks, today we're going to focus on graphing factored polynomials. Now this is kind of everything that we've been working towards, is learning how to factor these polynomials apart, find the zeros, figure out where they're crossing the x-axis, so ultimately we can graph these polynomials. Now the ones you're going to focus on for now are factored already, so that will take away some of the work that you have to concentrate on. So since they're factored, all we really need to do right now is figure out how to best set these equal to 0 and solve. Now, I want you to focus here first, x minus 2 squared. Anytime you see this happen, an x minus 2 or some binomial that is squared, what that tells us is that our turning point is going to land right on the x-axis. So when we go to set these equal to 0, the 1/6 is pretty much meaningless. It's not going to do anything for us. The x plus 3, we'd set that equal to 0, and that's going to give us a spot where it crosses the x-axis, so we can subtract the 3. So we know that the graph is going to cross at x equals negative 3. We also have that x minus 2 quantity squared equals 0, but it's the same thing twice, so we only need to do it once. So x is going to equal positive 2. Now, like I said, that's where one of our turning points is going to happen. It's going to happen right there. Now, if we take a look at all of this, we know that we're supplied with basically a positive a. And if we count the number of x's that are going to happen, we'd have 1 here, and then this setup right here is going to provide us with 2 more x's. So in all, this graph is basically, in its most base form, is going to be an x to the third graph. So if we think about what an x to the third graph looks like, it looks something like that. Now, like I said, we have this x equals negative 3, so it's going to cross the x-axis at negative 3. We also have this spot where it's going to touch the x-axis at positive 2. And we know that that's going to be one of our turning points right there because, as I said, it's to the second power. So now, we're not going to totally get into all the graphs and plotting all the points. I'm going to save that for once you get into pre-calculus, but we know that the graph is going to look something like that, where this turning point should be at 2. So that's all I really want you to do. I don't need you to plot a ton of points. The main thing is, can you figure out where these x-intercepts are? Here, we're going to do another quick example of it. First off, we have all of these different factors. And again, we can focus right here, x minus 1 quantity squared. So that means that's going to be one of our turning points. So we can set all of these equal to 0, so we'd have the x plus 2 equals 0. We would have x minus 1 equals 0, and we have x minus 5 equals 0. So here we could go ahead and subtract the 2. So we know it's going to cross at x equals negative 2. Here we would add the 1. So x equals 1. Now I want you to keep this one in mind because that is one of our turning points because it's squared. And here we would add the 5. So x equals 5. So we have 3 points where it's crossing the x-axis. We have one right there at negative 2. We have one at 1. And we have one at 5. Now, if we take a look at some of the clues we're given, the number out in front is a negative. Okay, so we know that we're going to have y equals some kind of a negative. Now we just need to count how many x's we have. Is it x to the first, second, third, fourth? So we can get a general idea of what this graph should look like based off of what we learned the day before. So we have an x here. This part is going to account for 2 x's, so this is an x squared, so we're up to 1, 2, 3, 4. So we know that this graph is going to be some sort of an x to the 4th. All right, so with this negative out in front, we know the graph is going to be a negative x to the fourth. And if we think back to what we learned previously, it's going to look something like an M with 3 turning points, left end and right end down. So now we can generalize our graph based off of this. And again, this point right here, this is a turning point. So as we're drawing this graph, it's going to look something like that. It's not exact. Like I said, I'm going to wait till you get into pre-calculus for that when you have graphing calculators, because this is a lot more involved than just what I'm showing you. But you have the basics now. So now I'm going to leave you to your own, let you practice these basics on page 390, numbers 3 through 12. Again, they're all factored for you already, so a lot of the work is done. It's just a matter of putting it to use. I wish you the best of luck, and we'll see you in class.